I'd like to call to order the June 14th, 2011 regular meeting of the Boulder Valley School District Board of Education. Sandy, would you call the roll, please?
Albright.
Here.
Belleville. Here. Jones.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Reed.
Here.
Roberge.
Here.
Smith.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to remind all who have gathered here today that the mission of the Boulder Valley School District is to graduate students in the new century who have the knowledge, skills, and personal characteristics that will make this world a safer, more thoughtful, and more inclusive place in which to live. In support of that mission, I'd like to begin our first agenda item, the superintendent's report.
Good evening, Mr. President. Tonight, before I recognize the Superintendent Honor Roll recipients, I first have the honor of presenting through the Operation Recognition Program a long overdue high school diploma to a former Boulder High School student. This diploma is awarded through the Colorado Board of Veterans Affairs, the Colorado Department of Education, and the Colorado Association of School Boards under state law. And will Albert Cordova please join me at the podium? Thank you very much for coming. Albert Cordova attended Boulder High School from September 4th, 1961 through October 10th, 1962. He left Boulder High to serve in the U.S. Army during the Vietnam War from November 19, 1962 through March 3rd of 1965, at which time he was honorably discharged. According to the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs website, what started out as only a vision and a promise to honor and thank the veterans who were former high school students who left school to serve our nation in her time of need has become a national program titled Operation Recognition. Operation Recognition honors the individuals who are the true heroes and real patriots of our country. And to receive a diploma through Operation Recognitions, applicants must be honorably discharged, veterans of World War II, the Korean War, or the Vietnam War, have left high school to join the armed services, have attained the age of 60 years. You look young for that, but you must have met the criteria. You have not received a high school diploma yet, reside within the school district where they attended high school previously, and at the time of leaving high school to enlist, they have been from this school district. Mr. Cordova, on behalf of the state of Colorado, the Boulder Valley School Board of Education, the Boulder Valley School District, and Boulder High School, we would like to award you your diploma. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank all of you folks. It's been a long time coming.
and this is my last thing I've ever wanted. I said I've accomplished just about everything in my life I have except for getting my diploma. I'd like to thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We have another Bob. This is Bob Abeda that we'd like to honor now, the Superintendent's Budget Advisory Committee member. Bob, would you come up, please? Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you. Bob was nominated for the Superintendent's Honor Roll by BVSD Assistant Superintendent of Operations Joe Sleeper for his exemplary work chairing the Budget Advisory Committee's Task Force on Transportation. A parent of 2 BVSD students and an accomplished business person, Bob is a community leader who agreed to chair a task force at my urging to address our district's transportation efficiencies. With nearly 200 bus routes covering 500 square miles, the target seems simple, but our operation is very complex. So Bob convened a group of 12 individuals who met bi-weekly for 5 months to tackle some very difficult matters. As a result, he provided me with a comprehensive and independent report with detailed recommendations on how to improve student services and provide savings for BVSD. According to Joe, Bob's leadership and facilitation was expert, and he was earnest in respecting all interests during the process. And this was a bit of an experiment on our part, Bob and me. We've done a number of audits in the district over the last decade or so, communications audits, special ed, ELL, IT, and we brought in expensive, at times, external agencies and firms to do those audits, and they've always yielded good input for us. But in these hard budget times, we started kicking around an idea that why couldn't we tap into volunteers, local people with great expertise and business acumen, and see if we couldn't exploit them a little bit and have them do the same kind of work. And I sincerely believe this report and the analysis done in this report is as good as any of the commercial products that we paid for. So I think we're kind of onto something here, and in future years, when we decide to audit some part of the organization as part of our continuous improvement, I think this volunteer model really has a lot of benefit to us, and the buy-in that we get from community members doing it, of course, is great. So I couldn't be happier with your help, and we have a certificate and a pin. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Mr. President, later tonight, the members of the board and you will take up final consideration of the 2011-2012 BVSD annual budget. That budget is, as required by law, now balanced. Thanks once more to the voters of BVSD for passing the mill levy override in November of 2010, thereby guaranteeing no cuts to our district next year, as well as some restoration of cuts that we endured this last year, particularly at the classroom level. So we will be excited to bring that budget forward to you this evening, and this concludes my report.
We have no student communication tonight, so the next topic on the agenda is public hearing and public participation. The board recognizes the value of public comment on issues related to the operation of the schools. To ensure that our meeting is conducted in an orderly manner, we ask persons to address the board confining your comments to matters that are germane to the business of the school district. Limit your presentation to 2 minutes. And finally, recognize that students often attend or review our meetings. Speakers' remarks, therefore, should be suitable for an audience that includes kindergarten through 12th grade students. The board president may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement that is unrelated to the business of the district or inappropriate for K-12 students. Tonight, we have only one speaker signed up on tag, and that is Deborah Goldberg. Deborah. There's a set of lights on the podium, and so when it starts to turn yellow, you've got 30 seconds, and when it's red, your time is up.
Thank you for allowing me to speak here. I've spoken here before, although not for a bit over a year, so I'm not going to go through details of my personal family's history and such, although my children are highly gifted and have suffered to large extents because of this. I understand that you'll be considering what's been done this year for TAG and what's going to happen going further in the future. And I want to just take this opportunity to thank you for taking, this segment of the population seriously, that highly gifted children may be a small fraction of any school district, although I do believe it is a higher fraction of this district than many others. But it would be unacceptable for any other small minority to be told that they will not get an appropriate education because there's just too few of them, and et cetera. That if we said, any group that there's less than 0.1% or a percent, they'll just need to be educated after school hours by their parents if they can, that would be totally unacceptable. And this is what I see, has happened and happens not intentionally. And I'm glad that the district has been looking in this direction, even through very difficult fiscal times. I think the district has done a wonderful job. I think Jennifer Barr, in particular, should be commended in finding creative, important, meaningful ways to help these children without, lots of funding at this point. And I think there is much that can be done with minimal funding, and I just here to state thank you for what you've been doing, and let's push forward. There's so much more that can be done and should be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks are always appreciated. Okay, that concludes public hearing and public participation. Next is board communication. Board members. Jenny.
I'm sorry to have missed last month's meeting. Oh, it's been so long since I've been here that I've forgotten how our microphone works. First of all, I'd like to thank Lori and Raleigh Heath and all of you, I know some of you out here in the audience as well, who've been working on an initiative. Lori, does it have a nickname yet?
Bright Colorado.
Bright Colorado, the Bright Colorado Initiative, which will hopefully, if it gets on the ballot and passes in the fall, and I'm thinking optimistically that it will provide a source of funding for education statewide, as well as post-secondary preschool through post-secondary education. I can't emphasize how important this is, not only for Boulder Valley, but for students throughout the state. I mean, we're an entire state, and we need to take care of all of our kids. But I heard Raleigh Heath speaking on Sunday, and he did comment that we're looking at $200 million in cuts to education next year if nothing happens, and our mill levy override won't protect us from that, as far as I can tell. So thank you, Lori, and thank you. I talked to somebody out in the audience who said that every event she'd been to recently, she'd been handed a petition to sign. So I'm thrilled for and I know there's somebody in Broomfield that I don't know that's carrying a petition, and I usually know the people who are working on education in Broomfield, so I'm just pleased as punch. I had an opportunity to stop by Emerald Elementary School in Broomfield earlier this week, and their summer school programs had started there. And I'm as excited as I know our staff is at the size of the size and quality of the preschool program. I mean, the summer school program that's going on. I hear we have 1,100 students in our summer school, and they're doing some really great things for our ESY and ELL. So English is a second language and special ed population particularly. But one of the things that Catalina said to me that I think is something that we could adopt throughout the year, I really liked her saying this, is that it's a science-based curriculum, so we're letting kids do things they're good at rather than concentrating so much on deficits. And sometimes I think in education we spend a lot of time treating children as if they're broken. So I'm really happy about anything that builds on strengths and gives an opportunity for kids to have experiences in school that are great and that treat them like they're the wonderful gifts to us that they are. So anyway, congratulations on having a great summer school program going. And then I have had a couple of issues raised since I came here last that I'd like to sort of ask about. And one of them is I've had some people talking to me about the quality of the subs in our school, that perhaps we're not paying attention to. We have a lot of subs, but we're not incentivizing people who have maybe teaching degrees. We don't really distinguish between them and people who don't. And this is sort of, I mean, it was raised to me by a sub who's concerned about it, but it gets raised from time to time over the years. You know, you'll hear about the long-term sub in the Spanish class who doesn't actually speak Spanish, or the sub in the special ed class who doesn't have a special ed background. And it's just kind of a concern that I'd like to raise. I'm not sure beyond that. But
Maybe if we started with an RFI and we could kind of outline what our current practice is in regard to subs, and then go from there.
Okay. And then I had somebody, a principal in Broomfield, who's concerned about, and you talked a little bit about this, but it's another RFI perhaps for the whole board, the prospect of all-day kindergarten, maybe on a tuition basis. I had a principal who would really like to see us do something with that, because schools in districts that surround Broomfield offer full-day kindergarten, and now that Emerald is going to have a full-day kindergarten for all of its students, that maybe we could be looking at what other school districts are doing.
Right, we kicked that idea around quite a bit, and I think it has a lot of merit for the whole system. There are challenges with having that particular model, onesie, twosies, but we can do an RFI on that and let you know kind of what process we're laying out for it.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. And I'd like to thank our speaker. It's actually not just a fraction of a percentage of students in this district who are gifted. It's 15% close to, I think, between 13 and 15%. You can correct me on that when you talk later, Jen. I'm looking forward to your report. But it's quite a substantial number of kids, so I'm glad to hear you come speak about that. And then finally, and I know you'll be glad that I finally stopped talking, I would like to sort of I was able to attend the catering final at Broomfield High School again this year. I didn't have 9 desserts this time, not quite that many, but it was a very good quality event, and it I'd like to pay tribute. It's a way to pay tribute maybe to the program, and the success of that program sort of emphasizes the importance of something that I know is close to Helene's heart, which is the importance of quality teachers. It's a wonderful program, and that is a wonderful teacher who has made that program what it is. And it's also a great example of the way we can collaborate with the community. The people who come in to judge, besides myself, she has professional chefs that come in and judge and that work with the classes throughout the semester. And it's a great example that I would like to see applauded and built on in our district. So thank you very much.
Who's next? Nobody?
Oh, you're
Helene.
I just wanted to comment because I will not be at the next board meeting because I will be on vacation. And I wanted to thank Dr. King in person, since I won't be here at the next meeting, for your years of service to the district.
Thank you.
You have left the district in, I believe, better shape than you found it. And you've made a significant contribution towards all of the education of all the kids in our district, and I thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Tom.
So I have a couple of things. First, I'd like to recognize Leslie Stafford and Bill Sutter for their work on the monthly financial statements. If you're not aware, we have now available on our website year-to-date monthly financial statements due to their hard work. And it's really helped me to understand how we're progressing through the school year. I've got a number of good emails from folks that are happy to see that. And it's a reporting that has all the major fund expenditures, both by object and SRE per program, right, Leslie? That's my understanding. And you tell me that you're planning some graphs and things like that to enhance that and so on. So I'm looking forward to see that. But thank you very much for that. It helps a lot.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Secondly, the draft rules for implementation of Colorado's Educator Evaluation Support Bill came out this month. I don't know if you guys have seen these yet or had a chance to look through this. But it's outlined some of the flow for evaluating both principals and teachers. one of the measures they're having here, multiple measures, they have two different basically branches that come in. One is in professional practice and the other is in student growth. And so that's good to see that. And then there's a scoring framework being presented as well. They're asking for comments on these draft rules, and I don't know if you guys are planning, but I have a few comments I'll be planning to submit as well. And we may want to have this as a discussion item coming up, one of our work sessions or meetings here in the near future.
When are those comments due, Tom?
Let's see here if it says, it doesn't give a date here, but I would assume pretty soon, within the next month or two, I would imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Blaine?
I'm pretty sure they're due before the August State Board meeting. And I would just like to comment also on, there is the opportunity for districts in this state to apply to be part of the pilot for the new evaluation system. It actually is a penalty-free pilot. It allows you to have the experience to take 2 years to implement a system and give feedback and learn, as opposed to a few years from now when a system will be designed and you'll implement it. So it is an opportunity to actually be a part of designing the system, and I was very encouraged by the fact that Ellen Miller-Brown and Dr. King have put forward pursuing this pilot, because I think it is a great opportunity for our district to learn how to do this work, and it's also a great opportunity for engagement with our teachers and our principals around learning how to do effective evaluation. So I'm very encouraged and hope that we're selected as a pilot district.
So Tom, to answer your question, I think if we were going to try to respond as a board, we would need to probably have some kind of a meeting to discuss this. But my sense is that what they're asking for is individual comments, right? So I would say at this point, the best thing is pointed out to all the board members. Each one of us can make our concerns and our ideas known by providing comments individually. And I think practically speaking, that's probably the best way for us to handle that at this point.
Yeah, you can be individual or as a designated organizational body, it says here. So they're actually looking for both. But I agree, we probably don't have time to do this as a board, so I would encourage us each individually to comment.
Lori?
Well, thank you, Jenny, and I have a petition here for anybody who has to sign. I don't mean to be too silly about it, but my goal is a couple thousand signatures myself, so come sign. And the other thing I would say is, in May, I was privileged to be able to attend the Justice High School graduation. It was just very inspiring and a lot of fun. And thank you, I appreciated that opportunity. That's it, thanks.
Jim? Okay. I guess a couple of comments to Albert Cordova. I guess it's never too late to learn, and it's never too late to get your high school diploma. So I was that was a very, very touching moment for me, and I think I saw a number of people kind of looking very touched as well. So what a wonderful story, and what a wonderful thing that we were able to do that. To Bob Abeda, thank you very much. I guess he's gone. For lending your time and your talents to the district. It's really important for our community members, I think, to take a deep personal interest in the district like that, and so I'm glad we were able to tap into that. So a couple of things for me personally. I was able to attend the Boulder Universal graduation ceremony, and it was a pretty important event for me for a couple of reasons. One is it was my last graduation ceremony as a board member, and so it's kind of one that I'll always remember for that reason. Second, it was their first graduation ceremony, so this is really the first cohort of students that went through that online program. It was kind of interesting that Most of these students were definitely on a first-name basis with their mentors, their counselors, but many of them had never met them face-to-face until this session. So it was really kind of touching to see all that come together. But it also had even more special personal significance for me because back in 1990, I was working at Bell Laboratories on applications for broadband technology and on what we called in those days convergence. And that's really being able to transmit all forms of information, of human communication, voice, image, video, and text over a common network. And one of the applications that we were studying and actually trialing at that time was this idea of distance learning, which was really the ability to provide instruction anytime, any place, so that rather than having to bring students into a building, we could bring instruction out to students wherever they might be. And, you know, we were looking at a lot of the technical issues about how we communicate and the importance of the teleconferencing and real-time interaction and a lot of these other things that are now part of these programs. And the other thing, and so for me it was really wonderful to see that what was only a dream around 20 years ago is now with a lot of hard work from a lot of engineers and technologists as well as educators, that it was, that dream is now really a practical reality for our students. So it was a very special event for me, and I just wanted to share that. So speaking of my last graduation, I think I've got about 12 meetings left now before I say goodbye to something that's been a major part of my life for the last 8 years. And so there's the realization that it's time for someone else to step forward. And I'm sure Helene shares this sentiment as well. It's time for someone else to step forward and to serve our community as a director on the Boulder Valley Board of Education. So I ask everyone in the audience, and either in person or if you're doing this through distance learning through the internet or through TV, to consider becoming a member of this team. The main qualifications, I believe, are a firm belief in the importance of public education as something that's critical to our community, and secondly, a willingness to work to make it better. The work's highly rewarding and it's always interesting. So please feel free to contact Helene or I or any of the other board members if you think you might be interested in this. And I'd be happy to share my experiences and talk about what's involved in the job. And if you know someone who you think would be a good school board director, please have them call me as well if they're so interested. And that's a sort of a segue into something that we as a board have done in the past, and that is from time to time we have held sort of, I wouldn't call it a workshop exactly, but kind of a question and answer session for people who are perhaps interested in becoming a school board member, who just have questions about it, and an opportunity to kind of talk a little bit in a non-committal, non-commitment oriented venue about what's the job, how do I get elected, how do I, what resources do I need personally, and what resources are available to me, things like that. So I guess I'm certainly willing to do some work on this, and I'm looking for maybe another board member who is willing to work on this with me and try to put together a session that we can kind of advertise and just see if informally, if people are interested in running for school board. Jenny? Will somebody else be willing to do it so I don't have to do it?
You just volunteered.
I know I just volunteered.
That's a good idea.
But I mean, if somebody else really wants to work on it, that's fine too, but I'm happy to do it. So, okay, Jenny, I'll be in touch.
You know where to find me.
I know where to find you. The last thing, I guess we'll do it now, is we're proposing that we do, as you recall in years past, we had a reception or an event for the district leadership team that was sponsored by the board, and we were trying to get people back to sort of kick off the academic year and get a chance to meet with our principals and the school board members. And last year we didn't do it because of the expense, but I think this year we feel that, or at least I'd like to recommend that the agenda committee agreed that we do something a little bit cheaper than what we used to spend in the past, but we do some kind of event. So we're thinking at this point of doing it perhaps in the cafeteria up at Arapahoe Ridge and having not necessarily a full meal. So I just wanted to make sure that that there's sort of a general agreement to do this. And if so, then we'll continue the planning on this. Okay, Helene?
Have we shared what the actual cost was of the event, and do board members have funds left in our budget? It seems to me a very different event to have something in a school cafeteria to kick off the year than, although I'm sure the food will be great, because hopefully if it's in a school cafeteria, it would be our food services, but it does seem like a very different event than what we've done in the past. And I just want to make sure, while I think the frugality is admirable, I would hate to see us lose something in terms of the message and support that I think we've given to our administrative leaders and every school in this district, welcoming them back with a celebration. And I would want to make sure that there is that same celebratory theme to it.
So how do other board members feel? I mean, if you're willing to, I think in the past we've spent about $3,500, something like that on the event. We get about 100, 150 people, I believe, at that. We can probably, we were thinking in terms of doing it for about $1,200.
And correct me if I'm wrong, we did, I don't really know what we're talking about, because I don't remember that we did it last.
We didn't, yeah.
So,
Right. And of course, this is also a great opportunity to have everybody meet our new superintendent as well. So there's another reason for wanting to do this. Go ahead.
Well, I think we ought to do something, because I think it's a really nice idea, and it's a good opportunity for everybody to come together. But maybe what we should do is look, I mean, given the comments about the cost and the importance of this, that maybe we should look and see if we can find something that might be a little less expensive, and still be very festive and really nice. I mean, let's just take a look at it before we decide where to go, but I think we should do something.
Okay. Well, if you want, we could put together an analysis and send it out to you, and then I guess we can talk about this at the.
Well, I think Ellen.
Okay, Ellen, yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ellen.
Well, all I have to say is a lot of the people at the Ed Center spend lunchtime at the Arapahoe campus cafeteria. And I need to tell you that it reminds me of a restaurant like in the mall. It's very expansive, and you, not only are you available to be inside, but also outside and have the view of the Flatiron. So we think it's really elegant and really nice. And so I don't think anyone that you've invited will feel like it is in any way sort of undermining the quality of the event. I think they would appreciate that it was in one of our schools, at one of our finest cafeterias, with some of our best food, with some of our favorite people.
Well, gosh.
So, any other, Lori?
I agree that it's a good idea, and that it would be a good, and it's a good opportunity to have everybody, or our leadership team, meet the superintendent on a more casual basis, so.
Okay. Well, we'll continue with the planning, and I guess we'll continue to take a look at the cost a little bit more carefully and see what we can do. All right, thank you very much. I think that was all, everything that was on my list, so.
Well,
Lori?
I would just react to one thing that you said when you were talking about encouraging people to run for the school board. I think it's a great idea, and I think it might be important to think about what the timing is, because the petitions need to be taken out in August. So if people are thinking about this, are you thinking to do this sometime in July?
Yes.
Okay, so people should be watching like newspapers or
Yeah, we'll try
press
to get the word
release
out
to
somehow.
think about a date, good, because I think it's really a great idea, and I think it's really important.
We want to do this early enough that they
People
can get their questions
time to
answered
think,
before it's time, before the deadline or the beginning of petitions.
Great.
So,
We could announce the date by our next board meeting.
Okay, we can probably do
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
All right, very good. The next topic on our agenda is information item, the quarterly report of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education and staff. I am Juana Gomez. I'm the new chair of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee. Since our February report to the board, we have met twice on April 7th and June 2nd. Thank you to Principal Stearns for sharing with us the Eisenhower Elementary's library for the first meeting. At that meeting in April, district and building staff presented 3 allocation items from bond surplus to make improvements to Broomfield Heights Middle School, Halcyon, and New Vista High School. The surplus came from accumulated interest earnings and unused program contingency funds. The committee listened carefully to each request. We asked many questions. There were several principals and school staff at that meeting. And after a long debate, we voted unanimously to recommend the funding as requested. We presented to the board this proposal to approve $1.3 million to augment project scope for those schools. And at your subsequent meeting, you approved that recommendation. At our June 2nd meeting, CBOC members discussed our interpretation of the termination of the group's duties as described in the adopted definition, which says, the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee will sunset following completion of all major bond projects, but not before 90% of all bond proceeds have been expended. We believe as a committee that it is our responsibility to the taxpayers to continue our duties until all projects have received final acceptance by the board. If required, we might meet less frequently as the program winds down, but we feel we should stick with the committee until 100% is complete. Also at that last meeting, staff provided CBOC financial documentation that is also available on the CBOC website. At this time, over 90% of bond proceeds have been expended, and all but 3 projects will be completed by December 31st of this year. And finally, the committee will submit another guest opinion to the Daily Camera to update the community on our experience with the bond process. Thank you for the opportunity to present this quarterly report.
Don, go ahead.
Any questions for Juana?
Okay. Board members? Lori?
Yeah, well, it's not a question, but it's a comment. Gosh, I mean, in hindsight, you realize that maybe it wasn't the smartest thing to say that when we're 90% done, we don't need you any longer. I mean, I think it makes perfect sense to say, please continue to look at all this until we're really done. I mean, 100% finished with all this, with your own discretion about how often you need to meet. I mean, I don't know what kind of change we need to make other than, my opinion is, please continue. I think you're doing really important work. Do we need to do anything procedurally or just?
The way that was written is it would end then or when all the funds have been expended. So.
Oh.
So at least until 90% is completed, I think is the spirit of it. And we felt like you do that we need to stick with it, so.
Yeah.
Elaine?
I don't believe it can be terminated without a decision from the board to do so. There isn't a decision before us tonight. I think we can all say to you, don't bring one forward. But that would be the point in time when any action would be taken. And I support continuing with the committee. I think you've done an amazing job. and been very thoughtful in your deliberations.
Well, it's been a good committee, and we're lucky to have the staff that we have.
Jenny, did you?
As a former member of CBOC myself, I'd like to thank you for your work and for taking on the position of chair. And it takes a lot of attention to detail, and so I appreciate everything everybody does. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure, and I know the pleasure of everybody on the committee also.
Comments? Well, thank you again for your service. We say this every time you give a report. It is a very, very important function, one that we value highly on the board. And anyone who volunteers to keep working beyond when they have to, I'm certainly happy to accommodate that. So thank you so much for being willing to stick this, to stick it out till the very end. Please thank your committee for us, and go for it.
Okay, thank you.
I was just gonna, if I could, just give you a quick update on a couple of projects, a little bit more detail, in addition to what Juan has provided. This last spring, we kicked off our final round of construction bidding, our Phase 3 projects. We started work actually on those as soon as school got out this year, and by the start of school in August, 12 of the schools currently under construction will be ready for occupancy. On our Phase 2A project, Columbine is the last project of 2A. Move out of the old building is complete, and currently we're abating asbestos within that building. Demolition of the old school will begin later this month, to be followed by site work including paving and landscaping, and site work is scheduled to be complete in October. Furniture is installed in the building, and IT installation is underway, primarily the projectors in all the classrooms. The office staff is already occupying its new space, and a ribbon cutting ceremony and open house is scheduled for August 11th at 6 p.m. Our Phase 2B projects, construction continues on the remaining 2B projects, which include Mesa, Bear Creek, Creekside, Platte, Sanchez, Ryan, and Pioneer. 4 of the Phase 3 projects, including Aspen Creek, El Dorado, Angevine, and Halcyon, will be complete for the start of the school year. 5 more schools will be complete by mid-year. Those include Broomfield Heights, Centennial, Fireside, Monarch High School, and Horizons K-8. And then, as Juana mentioned, the final 3 schools, Coal Creek, Douglas, and Community Montessori, are scheduled to be finished by August of 2012. That does it for the bond. Will be done. Want to also mention that we've spent over 90% of the bond proceeds. By the end of the calendar year, we'll be over 95% complete with our total program. This is more than 6 months ahead of schedule. This acceleration in schedule has allowed us to proceed to provide benefits to students and the taxpaying community earlier, and has contributed to savings in overhead, some of which has already been directed towards projects. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Board members? Great. Thanks, Don.
Thank you.
The second information item tonight is an update on the TAG pilots.
Good evening, board members and Dr. King and Dr. Roberge. I'd like to introduce to you Jennifer Barr. She is our coordinator for Advanced Academic Services. I think you've met her before, but I wasn't sure if she'd been formally introduced this year, and she'll be giving you our update.
Thanks, Karen. Also, thank you, Deborah and Bonnie and Sharon, for being in the audience tonight. They're some of our strongest advocates for gifted education and for change, and so I always appreciate them coming out on an evening and showing support and listening and hearing what we have to say. Good evening, Mr. President, school board members, Dr. King. I really do appreciate your interest in the talented and gifted lab site work, and the purpose of this information item tonight is threefold. Number one, to update you on the talented and gifted lab site work that was done in this school year. Number two, to share qualitative data findings from year-end focus groups held at each lab site, and finally, to share with you our initial plans for talented and gifted lab site work in the coming fall. First, a brief update. Last week, you each received an information item memo in your board packets that gave you an overview of the talented and gifted lab site work that took place this year at Aspen Creek K-8, Broomfield High School, and Manhattan Middle School. As you know, each lab site received additional support from me and from my office as they implemented research-based academic and/or affective programming for talented and gifted students and stakeholders. At Aspen Creek K-8, students were clustered together in their academic classrooms in 1st through 6th grade. Discussion groups and enhanced contests and competitions helped meet students' affective needs. At Broomfield High School, 9th grade students were clustered into 5 sections of freshman seminar that were specifically geared toward talented and gifted students. And at Manhattan Middle School, they took on 3 new programming strands: a seminar elective class for highly gifted students, clustering of gifted students together in their core academic classes, and a variety of discussion group formats. At all 3 lab sites, instructional staff support came through professional development, collaboration time, and coaching. Parent outreach meetings, parent education, and school communications helped inform the stakeholders at each site. So next, a look at the qualitative data findings from year-end focus groups. This spring, we held focus groups at each lab site to gather information and insights about the value of the programming. Students, parents, and educators were asked 2 simple questions. Number 1, what worked well? And number 2, what would you like to see changed? Tonight, I'll just share some common themes that we heard consistently from the parents, students, and educators that we spoke with. First, on the what worked well question, we heard that grouping students together for academic and affective programming is an effective way to deliver services. Here are some of the comments we heard from students. It was good to be able to talk openly without criticism with people who can relate to you. It's good to move more quickly in class. Parents also noticed that their students thrived when they were grouped with others who had similar learning styles and interests. A Broomfield High School parent put it this way: freshman seminar was beneficial. It provided a contact point and support. It also provided time to meet and get to know other similar students. Second, we heard that it worked well when classroom teachers collaborate for professional development that increases their awareness and understanding of students who are gifted and talented. Parents noticed that teachers were more aware of student needs and better able to provide different work throughout the student's day. Students told us they desire more challenge in the classroom and appreciate the teachers who understand their learning styles. And teachers consistently noted the need to build capacity in the lab sites and to reach more instructors through more professional development. Lastly, on both the what worked well and what would you like to see changed questions, we heard about communications. Parents were very happy with increased school and district communication efforts. They noticed that more teachers were able to talk about their students' needs and answer questions about programming. However, an area for improvement in communications that we heard from all 3 groups was a need to better understand the range of abilities, aptitudes, and personalities among students who are identified as talented and gifted. Students made comments such as, just because we are TAG, we're not good at everything, and I don't like TAG as a label. Another topic for improved communication is more clarity around programming, resources, and advanced learning plans. The notes from the TAG Lab Site focus groups were shared with all schools and with you earlier today, and will help inform and improve the work ahead. So I will close with a look ahead to the fall of 2011. In the coming fall, the talented and gifted lab site work will continue at Aspen Creek K-8, Broomfield High, and Manhattan. Each school will make adjustments in their programming and implementation based on specific feedback and learnings at their school. I will also continue to work with the schools to build capacity and bring in other schools who are interested in building similar programs and learning. In addition, Eisenhower Elementary will be vertically teaming with Manhattan to ensure a continuum of services for students. Staff and administration from both Eisenhower and Manhattan have already met and begun this work. Finally, Lafayette Elementary and Angevine Middle School will ramp up their vertical articulation work to ensure aligned programming, parent outreach, and communications. Thanks again for your interest, and at this time, I'm happy to hear comments or questions.
Board members? Jim?
I just got to say, for a pilot program and the board asking for a monitoring update, that was wonderful. Gave us the occasion, what was going on. I understand we don't have the data back, but qualitative data, good summary there, plans for the fall. If we could get that as a written report, that would be useful, because I know constituents ask from time to time, and just being able to forward them that level of work would be great. I am interested in when we would know it's time to expand the program. So, the budget conversations here started in February. And this is maybe a tickler for you for later in the fall. As we get more data in, and as it shows that we should be spending more resources in this area, please feel free to let me know, so that I will remember when the budget conversations start that we may have needs in that area. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Other comments or questions? Jenny?
So this is a question that's been posed to me, so I'll just pass it along. We have open enrollment in this district. How are we letting parents who might be parents of TAG children not at lab schools know which schools have effective TAG programs and which don't? I mean, how do we convey that information to parents?
As you can imagine, I get a lot of calls from parents, especially when they're moving from another state, who might have a different structure than we do. And typically they'll begin their question with, where's your gifted and talented magnet school? And so I can walk them through the services that we have, the different levels of programming and services at each site. But I really encourage them to visit the schools and to make a good match for their students. Because as I mentioned earlier, we heard loudly and clearly from students, parents, and teachers that the talented and gifted population is not a one-size-fits-all group. And so what works well at Manhattan or at Aspen Creek or at Broomfield may not be the correct fit for a particular student. So my advice is to visit the school, ask specific questions about programming related to that student's strengths and interests, and find a good match that way, as I would for any other school.
And I think, too, that the principals do a good job of advocating for their school and identifying how they're using their TAG resources within their school. Every school is able to articulate that pretty clearly in their PR work that they do.
Do we have a list of the growth scores for TAG kids by school?
We do. I don't, not
Available.
Tonight, but we have it available.
That's an RFI, could I get that, please?
Yeah, I was going to ask when it's updated.
Oh,
Will it be updated in August?
I'm sorry.
well,
didn't hear
yeah,
the
that's
question.
fine, you're right.
It'll be
We should
part
wait.
of the data that comes out.
Yeah, okay, when it's
Get it
updated,
to
whenever
you.
it's updated. Yeah, I'm really excited to get this report, and I've been hearing some positive things about, because of some of the work that's been going on has been going on in Broomfield. So I've been hearing some positive things all year, and particularly, I heard from one former student of mine who's a senior at Broomfield High School, but is also on their, what do they call it, the
Blue Crew?
yeah, the Blue Crew, that she really wished they had had something like that for her, that it was really a good program. So I appreciate that we're doing this. I do have a question, because it's something I hear about from Broomfield High School, which is the lack of advanced classes in language arts and social studies for their freshmen. I don't really understand why we tolerate that. It's the only high school in the district where you can't take advanced language arts or social studies that I'm aware of as a freshman. And I know that it's been something that parents and students have been complaining about bitterly as long as I've been in Broomfield. And
I think we're off topic there, so let's do an RFI on that.
okay, I just thought I'd raise it because it strikes me as kind of unusual that we have the pilot going on effectively, but we're not meeting the
I think it's a
academic
good
needs of those
question. I
same
think we can
kids.
research it and come up with the reasons, not necessarily good, bad, or otherwise, but there are reasons for that. but let us write them up first, and then we can go from there.
Okay.
Ellen, did you have something?
Yeah, Karen and I spent some time with Jen going to all of the schools at the end of the year that had been a part of the pilots. And I just want to share with you a couple of observations. One, that there wasn't appreciably more money spent to have these programs. These were kind of low-budget programs. We didn't have any money, but they were high-quality programs because what we gave to these people was Jennifer Barr. And everybody to the person said that was the key to the changes in their school. We all know that it's hard for instructional change to occur, especially such fundamental changes as Jennifer was trying to incorporate at these schools. And they all claimed that it was because of Jennifer. She did book study groups online and face-to-face. She was co-teaching with teachers. She would model instruction. She actually did a lot of the work and then moved out, building the capacity of other people to do what she was training them to do. So kudos to Jen, really, for all the success that this program has had so far.
Thank you, Ellen.
You're welcome.
So, other board members. Lori.
Yeah, I have a question of stepping back just a little bit. So, and maybe just a little background would help because maybe I'm asking a question without the full background. But this is a pilot, is that correct? So we have it implemented in these 3 schools at these 3 different levels. And it looks like this year felt good with qualitative data. People were pleased and felt good about the program. When do we make a decision to say it should go further? And how do we know that that this pilot program is producing the kinds of results that we're looking for in terms of satisfaction of students, satisfaction of parents, satisfaction of teachers, and then some academic measure that it's instructionally, with student achievement, makes a difference and is successful academically. So when do we know that? And we have another pilot that we're thinking about, and so I'm just trying to think about, like, if you have it for a year, and then now you're expanding it in a small way with Eisenhower, Lafayette, and Angevine, just with collaboration with those schools. How do we know when it's time to go beyond?
I think part of the concept is it isn't just a pilot, it's a lab school model. So that if we build the capacity within these schools to do, for instance, cluster model, that's a new concept in Boulder, and we need to try it out and get it going and see how it works. So Aspen Creek, kinder through 6th grade, we actually have classrooms that have clustered children. It was done in conjunction with Rich Villa, so that it's done in an inclusive manner, which sounds, contradictory when you first think about it. Once Aspen Creek gets up, then it becomes a lab site. Other schools can visit if they're considering it, so that we have an exemplar going on in our district. It's a little bit different than running a pilot and then starting another school to do that. It can be replicated if we have an exemplar that they can visit.
Mm-hmm. And I think, too, you mentioned the other data sources that we need to look at and triangulate and bring those things together. We certainly do have school climate data and other things that we can look at from this year. And the purpose of tonight's talk was really to share with you the findings from the focus groups, but we have plenty of other data measures that we can look at to determine how successful they were besides just feeling like they were successful.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, our next agenda item is the action item consent grouping, and I'm going to need to have a glass of water handy because this is a long list. Tonight, it consists of personnel items, approval of minutes of the May 24th regular meeting, acceptance of donation, Louisville Elementary, acceptance of donation, Summit, award of bid number 1126, Type A buses, Boulder County Justice Center lateral transfer, cash management for the 2011-12 fiscal year, contract amendment for online learning services, new course proposals, 2011-2012, out-of-cycle textbook adoption, permission for employee to sell products to the district, A second, permission to file for employee to sell products to the district. Proposed fees for 2011, 2012. Ratification of meet and confer process between the Boulder Valley School District and the Boulder Valley District Leadership Team, professional technical employees and non-represented employees. Ratification of negotiated agreement between Boulder Valley School District and the Boulder Valley Classified Association affiliated with the Colorado Education Association and National Education Association. Ratification of negotiated agreement between the Boulder Valley School District and the Boulder Valley Educational Office Professionals. Ratification of the negotiated agreement between Boulder Valley School District and the Boulder Valley Paraeducator Association. Grant BVSD Secondary Education Expelled and At-Risk Student Services, Colorado Department of Education, 2011. Grant Chief Academic Officer, Consolidated Federal Programs, Titles 1 through 3, Colorado Department of Education, 2011. Grant Nutrition Services, Team Nutrition Grants, Colorado Department of Education, 11. Grant Secondary School Leadership, Colorado Counselor Corps, Colorado Department of Education, 2011. Grant Secondary School Leadership, Teen Parenting Program, City of Boulder Health and Human Services, 2011. Do I have a motion to approve the consent grouping? Helene, seconded by Jim. Does anyone want to pull any of the items in this extensive group? I should have mentioned, we have two addenda to the personnel items as well. Anybody want to pull anything? Anybody have any questions or comments on any of these items? I just have one quick question. What is activity seating on the school buses?
I give up.
We have to give Joe one last chance to shine.
Actually, I anticipated this question. An activity seat is more like those that you would find in an airline, seat. So they're more of a contoured and a high neck, and so it allows for longer trips. A lot of these buses will be used for activities and athletics that will be going longer distances.
Okay, I assume these buses, because of their size, have seat belts?
Yes, I believe, they're 14 passengers, and so the 14-passenger buses require the seatbelt. These are all those, what we call our white fleet. So have you seen those white buses, the smaller buses? All these buses tonight are of the white fleet.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Sandy, would you call the vote, please?
Albright?
Yes.
Belleville?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Roberge?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, so the next topic on our agenda is the an action item. It's a 2010-11 additional transfer of funds for June. Do I have a motion to approve this item? Lori? Jim, second. Okay, discussion. Presentation.
No presentation. This is the transfer that was originally discussed and planned for the 2011-12 fiscal year, but we're taking care of it in this current year. There was no need to do any additional appropriations because the appropriations that were done both originally with the revised budget as well as the supplemental are sufficient to cover this in both funds.
So, any other questions or comments? I guess we should wait for a second for, go ahead, Lori.
Yeah, we discussed this in the audit committee, and I'm fully in favor of doing this for this year. But I would like to say that for next year, my hope is that this this department, we're not that we're figuring out how to manage this differently financially, without this having to do this again in a year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that the team is looking at ways to make sure that this is financially stable and sustainable. But I'm fully in favor of it for now.
Wayne, did you have any comments or questions about this item? No. Okay, any other comments or questions? All right, I believe it's time to call the vote.
Albright?
Yes.
Belleville?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Roberge?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next action item is the adoption of the 2011-2012 budget. Do I have a motion to adopt this budget? Helene, seconded by Jenny. Discussion. presentation.
So the changes from the last time we discussed, the reduction of the beginning balance related to this transfer that was just approved, in inclusion of the $14,000 for the anticipated increase in costs for the power purchase agreement that was discussed last meeting, and inclusion of funds for the move to cloud computing, as well as the adjustment correction to the superintendent's contract amount. So those are the minor changes that have occurred. Everything else is the same.
So comments or questions? We may set a record today for efficient meetings. All right, hearing no other comments or questions, Sandy, would you please call the vote?
Albright?
Yes?
Belleville?
Yes.
Jones?
Yes.
Myers?
Yes.
Reed?
Yes.
Roberge?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. So that concludes all of those items, and we are now on to the last item, which is agenda setting. Board Member Helene.
I have one item that I'd like to, and perhaps this is something that could be discussed at our retreat, and that's about determining what are information items on board agendas. You know, it is an opportunity for the board to be strategic and thoughtful about what we ask to be presented in public rather than an RFI. And I guess I think a couple things. One is, I think the board, perhaps at the beginning of every year, could identify what our area of focus and interests are that are more than the interests of a single board member. I think that they should be items that are connected to our strategic goals and items that are at an appropriate time to do reporting. And you know, I think tonight, while it was great to hear about TAG, and I appreciate Jenny's passion for it and applaud your commitment to it, I think often when we ask staff to come forward before there is either a decision for the board to make or more than just qualitative data, I'm just not understanding what our rationale is for doing that. I think the information we got tonight, we could have gotten in an RFI. I think we had agreed that in previous years that you get an RFI first, and then at the request of multiple board members, when you don't feel the information has been sufficiently provided, then it becomes an information item. So I'd just like to see us, perhaps in August, really be thoughtful about, okay, what are the things we want to focus in on this year, and how do we use our information items to do that? So I would just ask that perhaps when we're planning for the year, I'm not sure how you're working out the retreat agenda. I just feel like that would be the time for all of us to share our individual interests, which we all have them, and I applaud that. But we just have to make sure that we're appropriately using public board time and staff resources for generating these reports. So that's all I have.
Other board members? Okay, well, hearing no other discussion on agendas, then we need a motion to adjourn. Somebody, please. Lori. Seconded by Jenny. All right, hearing no objections, we stand adjourned.